Greetings everyone, my name is Etterville, and welcome back to my Let's Play of the Enchanted Cave 2. In the last part, I made it down to floor 60, well, a rush job of course, and defeated the Yeti on floor 50. So now it's time to continue off from where we left off. Before that, let's actually dump some of the things in this artifact place called the museum, as we already have enough stuff already, so might as well just put this all in here. There's too much stuff to equip and whatnot. And it acts like a nice achievement system as well, because it'll show all the weapons you have collected before and show your basic progress. Great for completionists. Of course, before I do that, let me check everything, just to make sure I have everything that I want. Long sword, the Yeti shield. Yeah, I don't want that. Yeah, I'm probably going to keep this in just in case. Magic versus... yeah, I'm going to keep the magic for now. Wolf gloves are pretty good. Everything else is fine. Now let me just place everything in this artifact, the museum. Of course, you can't put everything in here. There's only specific ones that'll go. See, pretty good progress. Of course, I'm missing quite a few weapons and helmets. But of course, the normal items are good enough for what they're worth. Let's visit the town one more time before I leave. We're losing a lot more people now. Wolf gloves. I already have good enough wolf gloves, so I don't want to buy any more. This guy's warning us about the Yeti on floor 50. Already matched it. And as they're all saying, people are slowly disappearing more and more. Makes sense considering what the Necromancer's plan is. Well, I haven't really shown it off yet. But basically, in some of the logs that the Necromancer has distributed about the cave, he's shown more and more that he wants to summon a demon from the Netherworld and use it to take over the world of sorts. So then, of course, to do that, he needs to have 1,000 souls, which he's getting very close to. Anyways, I'll meet you back at floor 50, where I continue off and explore floor 50 through 60 in more detail. So, I'll skip ahead. See you then! Alrighty, we're back here now. Let's read the diary of this Necromancer. At this point, he lost his book and has regained it in his lost track of time, and is discovering the power of the demon, and is thinking of a way to make it more accessible. It's actually a fascinating story if you can find all these books. Too bad there isn't a way to read it later on without having to re-explore all these things. And over here, I forgot to mention, if you open the menu and click the book icon, you can see all these enemies you've been facing, with all their weaknesses, strengths, whatnot, like with the Yeti, the icy goo, etc, etc. Alrighty then, let's go through this floor 50 in more detail. From last time, we have the mimics returning, annoying as their usual. Whoops. And I discovered later on that hovering over them and clicking over them doesn't always seem to work. It may be just me. And now that I actually have enough MP regen, shown over here, I can actually just use my Flame Strike, as it costs only 8 MP. I also upgraded some of my equips, got the Burst Ring, which increases my attack power, especially the fire one would be nice, and enchanted it. And I did some other enchantments, and I leveled up once. So let's actually distribute some of these stats. It's 5. Yeah. Let's see. Basically, the fire burst adds 34 fire damage to the next attack, so might as well save some for the boss. Let's see. What is my critical chance? 18%. Yeah, I don't want potions. I think I need a light-based attack for the final, considering it's necromancy. So this is the route I'll be going. Of course, I'll be kind of saving it up for a healing, but if I have enough potions, I can just spam it. What would be nice is more stat gems, though. Good. I have an explosive lime, so let's see. Does anything need enchanting? Yeah, let's enchant these wolf gloves. Now let's add this. More attack is always nice, as I've been saying over the course of this LP. Considering that how powerful first offense is here, if you can get the first strike in, it's very good. And there's no speed stat like in the first game, so I just focus pretty much on attack. If I get enough mana, which I don't really get as I'm trying to reduce the amount of time spent on this LP, or reduce the number of runs, then you could just spam MP attacks and just apply all the weaknesses, especially from floor 40 onwards. Like for example, these mages are weak against fire, so turn on Flame Strike, and they add 34 damage, and they take at least 50% more damage to it. Another explosive line. You saving that up. There's also another mechanic I forgot to mention a bit earlier. Depending on the number of runs you do in this game, the more the townspeople will disappear due to the necromancer's antics or goals. So the less runs you take, the less people will disappear. However, as shown or demonstrated by one runner who completed the game in just one dungeon run, probably due to how the random chance worked in his or her favor, what ended up happening is that afterwards, all the townspeople disappeared afterwards, in spite of this taking one run. So I suspect that'll be fixed or changed in the official version being released in March. The Steam version, that is. As otherwise, there seems to be no reason to actually do that to minimize the one run other than being self-imposed challenge or for speedrunning. Of course, and there'll be more side quests as well. Of course. And it really increases the tension. Or gives you another reason to actually finish the game faster, other than the challenge, of course. Mimic Central here. You know, I always wonder how they actually designed these mimics. In this case, I'm assuming they're magical constructs made by that necromancer, but in other games, it's more like a mechanical construct of sorts. It's always a fascinating idea, being able to lure and trap adventurers and taking it as an actual chest, and a rare one of sorts, as here it's an ancient item, if it was, and to give them a nasty surprise. Considering right now they're one of the highest attack enemies. Of course, it'd be more effective if they were placed in more places where the normal ancient items would be, like here or crevices. Of course, with my stats right now, they're not too much of a hazard. But I've always found them to be an interesting concept. To force people to actually pay more attention to their surroundings. And not just blindly rush through everything, collecting everything as possible. Of course, cursed items do the same effect with equipment, of course, especially when they can't be unequipped after you equip them, without visiting something or getting a special item. And of course I'll keep spamming Flame Strike, as even if they aren't weak against it, they'll still take more damage. Just need to make sure they're not actually resistant against it, of course. Thankfully there are no fire type enemies. Good, more ice armor. Icy breastplate. I'll hold off from it. It's great for this region, of course, mainly because of all the ice monsters, but afterwards, when we reach the final area with all its dark, light, and other type of monsters, its effectiveness reduces pretty quickly. Steel Defender. No. Still is numerically superior. Good, more attack is always nice. I kind of have a suspicion there's actually a secret over here, due to the shape of the room and all those enemies on the right. I could be completely wrong though, due to how the RNG can trip you up. It's not as nasty as some games like NetHack, of course, or other roguelikes. As if it was, then any item could be fatal. Or worse. Ah, another forge. I don't think it'll really be useful at this point, though. More MP. Hopefully I can get at least 180 or 190 for the final boss. Yeah, at this point MP is more important. There we go. Light. More MP. After all, the more MP I'll have at the final fight, the more I can use heal and other of these attacks. Okay, now I have the ability to use light type attacks, but right now, without any darkness based monsters, or without those wolves, it's not really useful. Well, actually, it is useful against these possessed knights, so let's fix this around. Light beam. There we go. I think this is good. I'll have to shift some other things around, of course. Has a nice effect as well. Oops. I do like the laser flying from above. Oh, what was that? Penguin feet. That's hilarious. Ah, Buckminster something. Fullerene. Fire defense, dodge chance. Of course, there are no fire monsters here, so not really that useful. Of course, the reason why I'm spamming all these spells is because I have so high regen. In fact, if I did an entire MP HP regen build, I could make the game even more broken. This will probably be balanced out in the later sections, or in the enhanced remake, being enhanced version of this game being released in March. Probably they'll have monsters which have decimate or bleed. Or anything with the percentage chance. Ah, full defense stats. Oops. Let's see. Oh, just another icy goo. And no secrets. Should have gone this way first. Ah well. Oh, another stat gem. Nice, everything is in relatively my favor today. At least for now. Can always change. Of course, this game's RNG is rather kind in several ways. I wonder if the dev Dustin Auxier will add a harder mode in, with tougher enemies, less fair RNG, etc, etc. But with the way the game mechanics are set up, I would definitely play that. After all, if you're having trouble, you can always grind your way out with all those stat gems. Just go 10 floors with it and your last deepest floor reached. Of course, I just wonder what the stat caps are set to. Maybe probably 999, following classic standards. Could be wrong though, as it takes a lot of time to get there and decide, it's not really that useful. In fact, if you're doing a normal run, 300 to 400 stats are pretty good enough for finishing the game, in terms of attack, defense, and magic power. Even in terms of HP, 900s or 1000 is pretty good. In fact, if you go with 2000 or 3000, you barely even need healing items. Though I'm getting a lot of materials I can use to spam create potions. So I'll have enough defenses against almost everything. Some nice trousers. Yeah, I'll go with still maintain with this, of course. Oops. And there comes all the plasma wizards. Ow. At this point, my attack and regen isn't enough to offset the damages they're giving. So, time to use heal spells. Or start using them, of course. Probably can manage to get 1 or 2 more levels up before I reach the final area. Or final boss fight, of course. Which I should be reaching in 2 parts ahead, of course. If everything goes well. And of course if I don't die along the way. That would be very embarrassing, though. As I said earlier, if you die, it acts like a roguelike. You reset to the part where you last entered, so you lose quite a bit of progress if you've been down for 20 or 30 floors. So if you want to be more cautious, just exit out at floor 70. Or floor 79, so you can avoid the boss. Of course, if you can't handle the series of the boss gauntlet coming up at the end, you can always just teleport out in the middle, as long as you have escape wings, so that's pretty nice. Oh, and we're at floor 60. Time for a brief pause.